Welcome back to another episode of Connie Celica, my 1977 Toyota Celica. Today we are going to officially strip this thing bare and get it ready for paint. If you've been following the build of Connie Celica here, then you will know that the front end of this car comes off. You've seen it before when we were originally fitting up the Beams motor, and you saw it again when I took everything out for the roll bar because we wanted to patch up some holes in the firewall. And now you're going to see it again. It's time to blow Connie up completely and just strip her down to the bare essentials and possibly rotisserie mount it, although I think maybe we're just going to turn her into a roller to take to the body shop for paint. And for those of you who are new to the series, first of all, welcome. And thank you for your recent comments in the last episode about how I pronounced the word Celica incorrectly. In fact, it is pronounced in many ways around the world. In America, you say Celica, which is why I call her Connie Celica. But in Canada and pretty much everywhere else, we say Celica. So if you find that offensive, I'm sorry that such a small thing is triggering you.
The door is that away.
The door is that away, that's right. I mean, Connie Celica, who really cares? The fact is, we're restoring a cool old 70s Japanese car, and that should be the part that interests you most, not my use of the English language. So with that slight bit of history dealt with, let's move on to ripping this thing apart. Pete, what do you say we start with just taking off the front end and pulling the motor out, and eventually we're going to get her up in the air so that we can boom mat the underneath, because we loved that boom mat spray on treatment on the Evo so much that we're going to give Connie the same treatment, and that'll save the body shop any kind of work they have to do underneath. They can just focus on the interior and the exterior for paint. So let's get to work here. Since some of you are new to this series, maybe we'll kind of recap some of the bits and pieces on the car so that you're up to speed on where we're at with Connie here. These are our Work Equip 40 wheels, which I love. I think they're awesome. I think they really set the car off. They're just such a cool vintage looking wheel, and yet they're brand new. They're available for sale right now. So the fact that you could get this style of wheel brand new was just too good for me to resist. These are a 15x9 -3 offset, I believe. We are running a 5mm spacer front and rear, so effectively this is like a -8 offset. And with the fender flares, which are gone now, they do sit nice and flush. So I'm really happy with the wheel and tire setup. And of course they're wrapped in these Toyo R888Rs and a 225 50/15. You can get this in a 45/15, which gives you a bit less of a beefy sidewall, but I just like that big beefy sidewall look on a vintage car. I think it looks kind of period correct. So there's our wheel and tire package. And as far as brakes and suspension go, you can see we have put on a Wilwood big brake front kit from fastbrakes.com. This is an A86 kit, front and rear, with these Wilwood 4-pot calipers. Comes with adapter brackets, brake lines, everything you need to fit up. This is a Technotoy tuning billet front hub. And of course our Fortunato coilovers are on front and rear. You would have seen the rears that we were playing around with last episode. So as a quick synopsis of the front end here, let's get to wrenching. Look at the nastiness coming out of the coolant system. Is there anything left in there? Oh yeah. It's like black. It's not sludgy, it's just like really dirty water. Like, how did the coolant system get this polluted? Because I drained this thing when I took the motor out to go to GC Customs. So this water's only been in the car since then, which is maybe a year and a half, but I'm assuming we just put straight water in it. Probably wasn't distilled water. I don't think we put any coolant in it. So maybe that's allowed this like corrosion to form or something. I'm not sure what to do, but I've never come across this before and I don't know how to clean it out of the car. So if you guys have any suggestions about the best way to clean it out of the engine, maybe let us know in the comment section, and we'll obviously do some research on it too. But God, that is really disgusting.
Yeah, it's filthy. Check
everywhere.
out the
coolant, or I'm sorry, the upper pipe here, the
Yeah.
coolant pipe. It's aluminum, and oh man, it's like this green sludge, and it's just like it's everywhere. Look at down there. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, so
Not good. Don't think we have a blown head gasket though, because the oil came out nice and clean. So I think this is purely a coolant
yeah,
system
this is gonna
problem,
need
but
like a full flush now.
mega power flush. So we'll figure it out. Man, you gotta love old cars for how easy they are to work on. Once you get the front end off, which frankly we didn't have to take off to take the motor out since we dropped it from the subframe, but it's all stuff that's gotta come off anyway, but it is super easy to drop this motor out. There's just not much to it, and this is Beamsy. For those of you who don't know, this is a Beams 3S GE blacktop out of a Toyota Altezza RS200 from Japan. It's like factory rated at 207 horsepower. It made around 185 wheel horsepower on the on-point dyno, tuned using a Link Fury G4 Plus, just like we're running in the Evo. We're gonna say bye to Beamsy here for a little while. We'll put her away. You might not see her for a bit, but trust me, she'll go back in there once it's ready for its proper home. Welcome to peeking under Connie's skirt, everybody, where you can see the underside of her is still got some Arizona dirt on it, actually. Like in places that we didn't really like clean the car before we did all the swap work. We just wanted to mechanically get the car sorted out, and then, you know, we'll clean it all up before paint kind of idea. So she's dusty and dirty under here, but and look at this original heat shield. This is a 43-year-old heat shield without a speck of dust on it.
Mint.
No rust on this thing at all, which is crazy. So we actually have a vapor blaster on order, or yeah, a vapor hone or a vapor blaster that we can like make this look like new again when that arrives. So we'll clean this kind of stuff up. We gotta peel off all this old undercoating, which you can see is just like flaking off here. Like it's just completely, you know, loose from the chassis. So I think we can just go around with like a putty scraper or something and get as much of this off as we can, because we want to be able to spray that boom mat on here and have it adhere to something that's, you know, not gonna just fall off the car. So we'll get rid of as much as that we can. I think we're gonna like primer this sort of patch area and maybe even like seam seal it, so we don't want moisture trying to seep in from the backside. Although I think the boom mat is thick enough and rubbery enough that it would probably seal this up pretty well, but we could, for any larger gaps, I think we'll just throw some actual seam sealer in there. What else? We gotta drop the rear end. So that's gonna be a bit of a job. This is your typical 4-link rear end from this era of Toyotas. This is all AE86 stuff, just like the front end was all AE86. It's all 86 back here as well. The GTS rear axle with a Tomei 1.5 way LSD in it. Got white line lower links and hard race upper links, because white line didn't make the upper links, so we got a bit of a mix and match there, of course. And we got our big brakes in the rear that we talked about before. So let's drop this down and then get to cleaning up the underside of the chassis. Look at that. It's like a 5-pound diet Connie just went on there. Not that she needs to lose weight, but This is a lot of dirt that was like inside the frame rails, and obviously a lot of the undercoating that's just flaked off. Compressed air worked remarkably well. It was a good idea that Pete had to just like blast the car with air and see what comes off. And I went around with a scraper to see if there was anything else I could really get off, and I couldn't. So I think the stuff that's really well adhered on there, we're just gonna leave it on there and boom mat over it. So we're gonna power wash the underside of the car though. But before we do that, we are gonna finish gutting the interior. So I hope you're up for some more removal of things. We are back at it here. It's the next morning. The car is dry. Our primered areas are nice and dry. And we are getting to the last steps of stripping the chassis down, which means removing all of the fuel lines, clutch lines. We had a redundant evap line that we've removed from this side already. You can see we've pulled the rear half of the fuel lines off on the ground. One of those which we're going to lose because it was a return line, and we've converted this car to a returnless fuel system. As a matter of fact, if you're wondering how we did that, you can go back to season 2 and look at our fuel episodes. We did 2 episodes on the fuel system, one of which included that returnless system that we sourced from Sickie. It's basically a C5 Corvette returnless fuel pressure regulator. So it worked really well, and it just cleans up the system. You don't have to have a regulator in your engine bay, you don't have to have a return line, so it's less plumbing to deal with. So last bits we've got here is the proportioning valve. I've unbolted that from the firewall. You can see we've pulled the brake lines out through the fenders, and this should all come down as long as it's not too tangled up here. So let's see what I've got. Oh, I've got this one bracket here fighting me here. There's always one bracket. So there you go.
Whoo!
Look at that.
That's
What
a
mess.
weird tangled mess. But
Imagine having to build this from scratch. I mean, it's just bending lines. It's not that bad, is it? But we wanted to leave everything intact because, I mean, these are 43-year-old fittings, which are remarkably rust-free. But you still have to imagine that getting these loose, you might strip it. You just, like, why poke the bear, right? So I may actually change out the proportioning valve to an A86 one, since I'm running basically an entire A86 braking system, although the brake booster is, or the booster is original, and the master cylinder is a 1-inch master cylinder off a 3rd gen Supra. But we had some brake bias issues when we track tested the car last year. If you want to see that episode, I think it's the second last episode of season 2. I've since ordered an adjustable proportioning valve, and I'm thinking I'll swap this one out as well, because this was designed for drum brakes. We're discs in the rear now. So the better I can balance the system out, I think the better chance we'll have to get the brakes to work really nicely. So we'll go tuck this away, and man, get the clutch line out of there, get the hydraulic brake out of there, and I think we are ready to boom mat. It is DEI boom mat spray time. If you guys follow our Evo build, then you will know that this is what we coated the entire underside of that chassis with, and it is incredible stuff. We were super impressed by how easy it is to apply, how low the mess is. It doesn't put a lot of airborne stuff into the shop, and it dries to this really nice, tough, like rubbery finish. So it's similar to like a rubbery undercoating that you might put on your car, but the nice thing about it is it's both a noise reduction coating, but it's also a heat barrier, and it's impenetrable, so it does seal the chassis to water and thus prevents the formation of rust. So we are getting all of those benefits out of this can, and really, I want all of those benefits on a car like this because, as we've mentioned before, Connie really is a tin can. She's
Give her a tap. I was tapping it the other day,
she
and
is.
wow.
Like, it is just tinny. So putting this on here is really going to dampen a lot of that down and make the car a lot more pleasant to drive on the street. We are going to put some boom mat traditional like butyl tile material on the inside of the car to further dampen it, but this will do a really good job of dampening the wheel well areas, the tunnel, the big flat surfaces underneath, as well as giving us a nice tough protective coating. Man, we are done with the boom matting, and what a satisfying product to use. It's just so easy to spray on there. There isn't a lot of splatter, although I did get some on my arms because I didn't have my sleeves pulled down. So wear gloves, cover up a bit if you don't want to get it on it, but it does wash off well. So no big concern there. And I mean, just like on the Evo, it's still tinny, but it does dampen it a lot. And I would say to really take a lot of the tinniness out, we're gonna have to put those butyl boom mat pads on the inside of the chassis, so we will do that once we get the car back from paint. But as a first step, I'm really happy with the way this undercoats the car, seals it for rust, and offers us that damping, that noise control. So did the wheel wells, did the whole underside of the car, and hopefully we put bolts into all the threaded bolt holes so we're not having to like tap those out later. But man, it's an exciting step. It looks more like a car that will look complete someday now than it did before. So feels good to make this kind of progress. And by the way, any of the products that we use in all of these episodes, you'll find a link to in the description, including this boom mat spray on stuff, which I think is remarkably affordable. I think on Amazon it's like 15 bucks a can. We bought it wholesale for less than that. So it's a very affordable product to be able to like do this whole underside with. We used 8 cans, by the way. So that's, what's that, like 120 bucks or something like that? So pretty tough to beat, sealing the whole underside of your chassis for that kind of money. So I think that is a wrap on this episode. We are out of time, but stay tuned for the next one where we are going to tackle a pretty big job. We are plugging that sunroof.
Celica は Celica GT の先端ニューセリカ新セリカセリカを
This original pronunciation has continued to be used throughout the majority of countries today.
Toyota Celica. Celica.
Toyota Celica.
Celica, because that's how we say it in Canada here.